The main reason I personally invest in Tesla is that I see Tesla as an innovation engine. Yes, they started off as an electric vehicle company, but since they're actually a software company at heart, the rate of updates to the car is what is most powerful. Tesla that I bought in 2020 is not the same car here in 2024. Since then, through free over-the-air software updates, my Tesla has gained many new capabilities. Today, we're going to speak with Jeff Lutz, who led the mobile phone revolution. He'll explain more about Tesla's pace of AI and pace of product development as it compares to other companies, not just other car companies. Jeff is an ex-Supply Chain C-Level Executive for Motorola, Google, Lenovo. He's currently running his own consulting firm serving mega-cap tech and supply chain design and manufacturing. Welcome, Jeff. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, Herbert, great to be with you. Yeah, there's certainly a lot of people involved in ramping and the scale of the smartphone. I was certainly a leader in that position. There were many other great people I worked with, and there's many other great OEMs as well. But really, that example kind of brings me back to this discussion now of AI. AI is this big bet. It's come to fruition in certain phases. I think we're in the very early innings. But fund managers, Wall Street investors, they have decisions they have to make. There's only so much liquidity, so much money in the marketplace. And you hear these names, you hear NVIDIA, you hear OpenAI, you hear Microsoft, you hear XAI, you hear all these different names, Amazon, you name it, and Google Alphabet, obviously. And you're trying to think, well, what's going on? Like, what's really happening? Who's ahead? And it's a complex thing to kind of unpack. But one of the things that I've seen that's happened, I think that's been a disconnect over the last year, is really how under-discussed both Tesla and Tesla AI and even XAI, but how under discussed that set of companies has been in the broader grouping. And the example that comes to mind for me is that, thinking of these major devices that we use in our lives every day. And I'll go back to my area of specialty in the smartphone. And if you look back just, 4 years or so, call it 4 years, and just, you put your smartphone down on the table, you wake it up, you look at it, you look at like what you can actually do with it. What are you doing with it? You're interacting with social media, you're texting, you're doing some calling, but you're doing search and so forth. You're basically doing the same things. It's very similar. It's a very similar setup. Now, take that same example and why I think Tesla has been kind of undercalled in this space is look at what's happened with Tesla. You got in your Tesla 4 or 5 years ago. There was basically, from a driving assistance perspective, it's a nice experience inside. You can, there's voice activation, you talk to the car and so forth. But, you're still driving yourself. It's all manual control from point A to point B. There's lane keeping assist. There's some, there's definitely, Tesla autopilot and so forth. But if you look at the jump that Tesla's made, and now if you look at V13.2, and there's nice short videos on X and on the YouTube now that show that people just get into their car, they speak their destination, a button appears on the screen, you long press the button, and the car literally, can back out of a spot, can maneuver its way out of a spot and take you from point A to point B. And that really struck a chord with me, because now everything that you used to have to do, you can now just do with one button in terms of controlling the vehicle. And the vehicle does the rest. I just had a great experience, had a meeting in the city today, one button, from leaving the city in my Cybertruck, city driving to highway driving, back to city driving, and back to my home without having to do anything. And that example is just side by side of the smartphone tablet, which is a huge industry where there's tremendous investment, tons of engineering, lots of money flowing through this industry, the app ecosystem, the services, the hardware. There's 1.2 billion produced per year. There's about 4.5 billion smartphones in existence to tie the two things together. And so there's a lot of money, but I still, my usage of the phone 4 years ago is very similar to my usage of it today. My usage of my vehicle now, my Tesla, what it can do 4 years ago versus today are just night and day. And it looks like Tesla's R&D effort, both on the software side, the hardware side, of course, the network infrastructure side, AI training infrastructure, their own inference chip, the work they did on the silicon from the ground up, it looks like they now have a measurable lead in the application of AI in devices that we actually use. And I'm not sure why it doesn't get the kind of, first off, Tesla's trading very well right now, and it's getting, I think it's in the beginnings of getting some credit for this. So I'm not saying it's not getting credit, but in terms of being in the conversation about AI, it certainly comes up third, fourth, or fifth, or sometimes not even at all. And in that example I just gave you, and I can give you many other, I think it's actually leading.
Yeah, it's so important because you were a person that started off the mobile phone revolution, and you said it wasn't you; it's a team.
Yeah.
Yes, but you were there, and you know when it's turned from a dumb phone to a smartphone, you saw
Yeah.
that happen. You were making it happen. Here we are of a dumb car turning into a smart car,
That's
and
right.
what happened with the smartphone, same thing's happening here, which is if you had Nokia trying to create a smartphone, they really didn't have that in their DNA. Tesla happened to be a software AI company from the very beginning, happened to be the first hardware was a car, and then now it just doesn't matter what the form factor is. We'll create different kind of hardwares, but it's really the updates. Uh, and so that's really I want you to speak to the pace of innovation because you've repeated that word, I don't know how many times the entire year about
Yeah.
the progress and the measurement of the progress. That's what really people should be focusing on. I want to share this, which is a note by Yun Ta Sai. He is one of the top senior engineers at Tesla's AI team. And he's just forwarding this post by Tesla, who said, if you bought a Model 3 in 2021, these are the features it has received since then, all free, all over-the-air software updates. Yun Ta Sai said, amazing that our over-the-air updates, we over-the-air update more often than my phone. And
Yeah.
that's what we were saying. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
here's the
even
list.
before.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I'm not going to go through that list, but basically you can see, you and I know all this. Many Tesla owners know all this. Every once in a while, we'll get an update to the car, a software update, and all of a sudden it can do these features. It's unbelievable. Zoom calls in a car if you have a upgraded chip in your car. But these aren't just features like, oh, there's a new game. Many of them are like that, but there's features that you were saying that all of a sudden my car can now do amazing new capabilities that you wouldn't expect at all. So just amazing.
Yeah, there's something here in terms of the architecture planning, the engineering planning, because Teslas that are 5, 6, 7, 8 years old and more are being upgraded, and they're getting most, if not all, of these features. I know there's an issue, in terms of now the bifurcation in the self-driving computers, and that hardware 3 would be coming later. That Tesla, that's not uncommon to fork and to drive improvement in one and then bring it down to another. But I just want to draw a comparison. Before, I think last year, even in the smartphone world, they were stopping upgrades after 3 years. If a device was more than 3 years old, it wasn't even getting security updates, critical security updates to the device. And now most of the smartphone, the major ones have picked up, and they're doing 5 and 7 year upgrades now, which is great. But I just want to draw it back to that. I want to give you the example of what should have happened, in my opinion, with smartphone and tablet to keep up with the pace of what Tesla has done. And for smartphone and tablet to have kept up with Tesla's pace in software and AI, what would have had to have happened would be at the end of 2024 now, I should be able to look down at my phone. It should wake up, and I should be able to speak to it, which I can. I can wake the phone up by speaking. That's great. But I shouldn't have 120 apps I have to fan through. I should just be able to talk to the phone, and I should be able to say, it's the end of the year, right? It's tax loss season. It's trying to trim up and clean up your portfolio, right? Here's an example. I should be able to talk to my phone and say, look at my portfolio, give me a scenario, like give me 3 scenarios that would minimize my capital gains paid and 3 tax loss scenarios. Give me those, tee them up for me, and then give me the choices. Tell me which one you prefer. And then when I pick the one that is preferred, go into my trading app and make the trades for me and get it done, and then give me confirmation once it's done. That to me would have been smartphone, core software, hardware, and app ecosystem keeping up with what Tesla is now doing with one button to push to drive your phone, and the rest, there's no input needed. You would have needed to have that level of innovation. I can go on and on in terms of, you see all these demos for the latest things that are happening in smartphone, but in reality, there really needs to be a monumental push. I shouldn't have all these different things. I mean, I should have the ability to look at these apps, but quite frankly, I should just be able to pick up my phone, and I should be able to say something, and it should be able to go off. It should be able to go into all my individual apps. It should be able to log me in, do any tasks I need to do, execute them, give me confirmation, and move on. And we're just not there. And I'm just telling you that the pace of innovation, how do you do something like what Tesla just did? It's vertical integration. It's the proper architecture. It's the proper technical leadership. It's obviously a great team, but to have that forethought, this forethought of getting into the car and pressing one button to drive, this was a goal, I would guess, more than 10 years ago, but certainly when they hired that silicon team to do their own inference inside of the vehicle. The way you can do these kind of things that Tesla has done is they have everything vertically stacked inside their company, but that's not it. You have to have great leadership. You have to be able to take, unbelievable outsized risk, and then you can get these great rewards. Finally, these decisions that they made on cost and minimizing the cost of the robot that is going to be out in the world, that's how you're going to be able to get to 10 million robots on wheels next year, is because the cost of the autonomy hardware was basically the value add, or the variable cost of this is almost pushed to zero. When you think about the lifetime revenue of what you'll get from autonomy, you've almost made the hardware suite zero.
Gotcha. Can you speak more to when you said the pace of product development is different with Tesla than other companies? Can you explain what that is? What is the actual difference? And then why they're able to do this that other companies aren't?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on it a bit. If you just now compare them to auto, first off, it comes from leadership at the top, the roadmap, the vision of like what the company is going to be. I think Tesla put that on display, by the way, with Re-Robot on 1010. Yeah. And that was a vision of the future, just, within the near future, within 1 to 5 years from now, the way to think of it. But you have to have that vision, and then you have to have those assets, preferably, in my opinion, vertically integrated, because you want the priorities to be consistent and aligned with what you want to do all the time, every time. When stuff is spread out to other companies, sometimes the priorities change. Sometimes a bigger customer comes in and then bumps you over. This is a big thing that happened in the phone world, quite frankly, when Apple and Samsung emerged larger on the scene. What they ended up doing is they ended up taking companies that were getting first priority in the supply base, and they got them all bumped over. And it does have an impact. So you really want as much of what you're doing to be vertically integrated as possible. Visionary leadership, and quite frankly, Elon has hired people in his likeness over the past 15 years. And if you look at the tenure of these people, I think that's very important. That's unheard of, by the way, in Silicon Valley, to have that higher percentage of the team to have that long of tenure, with the company. So there's definitely something special. It's one of the top 2 companies, SpaceX and Tesla, where everybody wants to work. So they're getting the best engineers, and that flywheel is turning. Finally, it's, some of these bad decisions that are made in legacy auto sometimes are unrecoverable. And many times it takes them, many years to how will they close the gap on making a profitable EV? Those cycles take many, many years. You can't just go buy a Model 3, tear it down and say, I'm going to copy that and do the same thing and have the right cost structure. It doesn't work that way. And some of these things are kind of long in the making. Finally, the pace of innovation is key. By the time that maybe there may be some auto companies that will be able to make an EV profitably. By the time that they're able to do that, do it consistently, do it at scale, Tesla's already there, but Tesla will be on to autonomy, and they'll be on to kind of the next. They're going to basically change the sources of revenue in automobile. Like they're going to completely change it by the time that, these companies can catch up. So it's not a winner take all. It's like they're not going to be the only company making a vehicle. They won't be the only company with a robotaxi service, but it could be a winner take most thing. And the pace of innovation, that piece of it, if people always jump on the Tesla and say, well, it's late, or it's not when you promise it. You've been saying this every year and so forth. When you're going after things that nobody's ever done before, those schedules are very difficult to predict, and more than likely you're going to be wrong. And the companies that kind of sound like they're not wrong or never wrong are probably not taking enough risk.
Yeah. Okay. There's two things I want to ask you. So the first one is, one of the things you've said a few times this year was the sense of urgency. So why is it that Tesla is able, or XAI was able to implement their supercluster within 122 days, but companies like Google and Microsoft, which is, OpenAI, Mark Zuckerberg is so upset at Microsoft because they're taking 6 months to a year to get theirs up, even an innovative company already. Why? Because Elon has some sort of sense of urgency. So why don't you answer that first, and I'll ask you the second question.
Well, there's a sense of urgency, but it comes in many different parts. First off, you have to have a mindset with schedules where you take everything down to zero base, and you almost get it down to like the laws of physics. So like, okay, well, you're saying it takes 3 weeks to get this cabling from here to here. Show me the physics of that cabling leaving the factory. Show me the physics of it arriving here, and now give me alternate paths. And if you instill and drill that mindset into your team, they're going to start doing it themselves. And of course, there's going to be cost trade-offs for doing things. Of course, you don't do everything, you make every crazy decision all the time. But I've seen, and I've instructed to do some of the most wildest things you can possibly imagine to meet a program schedule. You have to be inventive, you have to be creative, but that has to be the baseline. Everybody in the team has to know that you are going to be questioned by the CEO down to the smallest detail. And if you don't have all your data, if you don't have all the facts, you're probably not going to be in that position driving it. So it comes from that leadership. You can't just sit in a corner office. You have to be sleeves rolled into the detail, think through things in the laws, down to the laws of physics. So like, what's the shortest amount of time to complete a task? And the other thing is getting partners aligned on speed. These are all things you can do contractually too. There's a lot of things that you could change in a contract relating to speed relative to price. So you can pay more, right, for greater speed. So they maybe they get more resources. Maybe they bump you up in a queue. But it starts with a leader that understands the time value of money and understands why the 19 days was important and what it will mean to time to value on the other side of it. And then they can mentally compute and say, all right, that's worth a lot of money. A lot of people don't actually do that computation. Yeah, gotcha. So I'll spend a lot more time to get these parallel efforts going and to accelerate my product development. Some people just don't think through it.
Yeah. Love it. The second question I was going to ask you was, the other thing you've mentioned before was there's two different kinds of projects, right? There's the project that's known, you already done it before, or somebody has done it before, you kind of know what it is. And then there's a project that's unknown, something completely new, like never been done before in the past. But Elon goes, okay, I want you to do this unknown project. And that's why half the time he's off, because it's an unknown. Like there's just so many, it's inventions that need to still be done. Can you speak to the difference between the two? Yeah.
We used to put smartphones in various classes of development too, and judging by the amount of reuse that we were carrying over into that product. And by the way, reusing and platforming is a great thing. That's what Tesla does. This, by the way, you'll see a lot of reuse and sharing between programs. That will get them a lot of certainty. That will get them a lot of dollars out of the cost. But in terms of schedules, everything turns into a node, and every node in the schedule has a probability of success, has kind of a goalpost around it in terms of like how quickly it could happen and what are the ranges and probabilities of success. So there's different tools to do this with, But in general, when you're dealing with something that's never been done before, you have a lot more uncertainty. And so what people tend to do is they tend to put padding into the schedule. They tend to build
Right.
all kinds of, and my guess is Elon and Tesla are probably not doing that is into a greater degree. I'm sure they're doing some of it, but yeah, I mean, this is what you're seeing. If you're late a lot, but eventually you ship, that means you're probably taking a lot of risk all the time. And a lot of the risks that Tesla takes, sometimes we don't even see like why they're doing it, but under the hood, there's some dramatic simplification. Under the hood, there's some dramatic change for mass of the vehicle or something. But they have to do this all the time. So yeah, so it's a flywheel.
And then
when you take this risk, by the way, when you take this risk, you're going to have partners in the industry that will take the risk with you. And they know that, okay, they're dealing with Elon Musk. They know if there's a spending bottleneck or if there's something needed, he's going to hear about it. He's going to block it. And they also anticipate, like, if they're going to come into a meeting with Elon Musk, like let's say it's one of the partners for building the data center for XAI, they're not going to come in with some padded schedule, and they're not going to come in with something that hasn't been properly wrung out all the way up to their CEO. So just Elon's level of engagement is quite unique in terms of how deep he goes into the detail. And by that, it elicits a different sense of urgency and a different...
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the difference, isn't it? Like other CEOs will stick at the very high level, show me the big numbers, but Elon goes right to the line. And so you better be able to explain it. And then he forces everybody at the line. The other thing, can you speak to like this continuous improvement? So, right, isn't in Tesla, when the car is being made, they will continuously, like daily, not like normally other companies will do it like every quarter or every half a year, they'll make a change to it because the line is moving along. These guys, if they want to make a change, they'll do it that day and then they'll just make the change, right? Like, do you know the difference between, what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. They, this is something that a lot of companies measure and try to do, which is you want to react to what you're hearing in the field, and you want to react to new information in the world relating to a supply base or whatever. You get a cost reduction, and you want that time from seeing it to the time that it's on your line. You want that to be minimized as much as possible. A lot of companies don't even measure this. Yeah. But in Tesla, they know the culture is like, for these vehicles to survive and for the scale and volume to be there, they have to get the cost structure down. So it's almost a matter of survivability, but they have this continuous engineering event-driven process. And it's also got supply chain driven costs. And that's different from the quarterly reduction process you ask suppliers for. And it's just a continuous process that runs inside of Tesla. Like, how do we get the cost lower? And they take those lessons learned and they build them into the next vehicle as well. So it's in their culture.
Yeah, I love it, Jeff.
Yeah.
Boy, it sounds like you know quite a bit, of course. Thank you for doing that. Your background, you have run factories, you've gone, of course, supply chain. You were the Chief Quality Improvement Officer. And actually the combination of the two, I think you're unique, right?
Accelerator brake, yeah.
You were the CQI, the Chief Quality Officer, but also the factory supply chain. You build the product and then you test it. So you almost like that. That's basically what Tesla is all. Like you just said that just now, right? The ability to anticipate already, not just my job is just this part. I'm going to build it. I don't care what happens at the other side. Well, you do care, but you just don't have the knowledge of measuring it, testing it, reacting to it as quickly as possible. But you have both. So
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not smarter than Tesla. They're way out ahead of this stuff. I'm just kind of commenting on what I see and maybe how some of these pieces fit together. But I have no inside information. It's just me speculating how things are working. But I can see how it's actually impacting the bottom line of the company. It's exciting.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for doing the show with us. I mean, this is the most important thing for Tesla, right? The pace of innovation, the pace of product development, the pace of AI. It's how whoever moves fastest. And we're seeing it now. Like the pace of AI is so fast that you're seeing them not only leapfrog over the big boys, right? We're talking Google and Meta and Microsoft, and they're all left in the dust now because Tesla's so fast. And this is what's going to make them win. And this point where
proper vision.
Once they win,
yeah,
you can't catch up anymore, because if your pace is so much faster, you can never catch up.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they have the vision at the top, they have the engineers, and they're focused on speed and performance. It's going to be a very difficult group to beat.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Follow him at the Jeff Lutz on X. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.